Welcome to another segment. This one is on source types. There are many different types of media that can be used to conduct your research, and the forms you select will really depend on a few things. The first will be your instructor and the expectations of the course. The second will be your topic and the information you need to find in order to present your topic. It used to be that for books, you had things rather easy. There was one format, a standard printed book that you had to go to the library to check out, something you physically held in your hands. Now we have ebooks and online books. Don't get me wrong, they are all still books. They just come in a little bit of a different format than us old school researchers are used to. Books count as academic sources so long as they are peer-reviewed. What does that mean? That means that they are not a self-published item. They have gone through a publishing company who has vetted the materials to ensure quality for the readers. For most research, academic journals are going to be your number one go-to. That could change as technology continues to change. However, this is unlikely because academic journals offer a solid peer review process that ensures the readers are only receiving quality material on their topics of focus. With academic journals, just like with books, it used to be that you only had the physical copies you could find in your library. However, with the advances in technology, you can now access more materials than your school's library could ever hold. For that reason, I highly recommend working closely with a librarian on how to search and how to narrow your search so that you only find the very best academic articles for your topic and for your paper. Because let's face it, do you really want to have to dig through 500,000 sources? Or is a few hundred a little bit more manageable for you? I also highly recommend using the abstracts to your advantage. An abstract is a summary of the article. Usually, you can browse through these to help determine if the full article is worth your time or not. You will also want to make sure that you can find your article again if you're going to use it again later. This could mean sending yourself an emailed link in your school account. It might include printing the article to PDF and saving it that way. Maybe it means printing out the physical article and putting it in a 3-ring binder so that you have that copy in hand and on your personage. Or you could create an annotated bibliography with a full list of potential articles. Whatever method you use, be sure that you're tracking your sources so that you have what you need when you need it. There are a few different types of interviews, and the type of interview you might use for your paper will really depend on your topic in your paper. As the author, you have to determine what information is needed in order to get your message across to your audience. For that reason, understanding the different types of interviews and how they can be presented is important. The professional interview is an interview conducted by a professional in the field, usually a journalist. Typically, there's a clear agenda to achieve within this interview. So the question become more pointed toward the theme of the interview the further into the process you go. I will say that if you know that you don't need a professional interview that someone else has done, but one that you conduct instead, that watching professional interviews can be a good baseline for you to see how to conduct your own. This leads us into the personal interview. This is one that you would conduct on your own. It might be that no one has conducted an interview with the individual you need information from. Maybe the information you need was never presented in prior interviews, or the individual you need information from was not famous enough for an interview to be officially documented. All of these are good reasons to conduct your own interview. Remember that interviews are a type of primary source. The way an interview is presented matters when it comes to citations and in-text citations. You could have a written interview that was put into print for a reading audience. You might have a radio interview that is only audio. Or you could have a video interview that is posted online. All of these have their own way of being cited. For audio and video files, I can tell you that the in-text citations get the timestamps that note where in the interview you are pulling your information. As we explore a website, I want to point out that not all websites are created equally. Back in the early days of the internet, you could tell which websites were okay to use and which ones were not based on the last 3 letters of the DOT. However, with what is termed Internet 2.0, there are so many content creators and websites that it can be hard to tell which sites are acceptable for research and which ones are not. The 3 letters after the dot are still a good baseline, but they're not the end-all be-all that they used to be. Today, you have to heavily evaluate your source for potential bias, which is covered in another segment. With websites, the important thing to note is that you don't want to use too many in your academic research. Instead, you want to find a balance of 2 or more academic or book sources to every one website you decide to use. There are some instructors who will go even further and tell you that you need to have 3 academic sources or more for each website used. Be sure to always look over the paper requirements and rubrics so that you know what balance and source ratio is expected for your classes. The last type of media for sources is the video. With videos, there's a plethora of sources available to you, sometimes to the point of overwhelm. Understanding the different types of media can help you narrow down what you might want to use for your paper. Movies can make for interesting pop culture references. News clips are a primary source that allow for information on a topic that was presented as the moment something was happening in that time frame. So definitely a primary source. Interviews are also considered a primary source and were covered earlier in the lecture. Speeches are something that is written out ahead of time with a specific audience in mind. They can help you to understand a chain of events, a state of society, or any other number of things, as they are very versatile. Documentaries are a secondary source. They are items that look at information after the fact, and they can be rather useful in gathering data about an event, time period, or topic. While these are not all of the various types of video media available to you, they are a great starting point for academic and research writing. As mentioned with interviews, there's a specific way to note your video sources with in-text citations. You have to have the timestamp that your information is being pulled from in order to have a true in-text citation. It's like putting the page number that you found your article information on. There's a certain way to note the final citation at the end as well. For that, make sure you are referring to either the MLA or APA style guides to ensure you have all of the correct information in the correct places. I hope that you found this lecture on source types helpful, and I look forward to seeing what you do with it. I'll catch you on the flip side.